Hello, everyone, and welcome to Epic Encounters. I'm your host, Braylon, and this is my co-host, Matt.
Yo, yo.
And today we are bringing you a battle for the ages. One of the most powerful sorcerers from various universes. This being Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme, versus don't boo just that early. Versus Gojo.
Oh yeah, our white-haired cute boy.
And we will be comparing the two characters, their powers, abilities, feats, and skills to decide which one of them would win in a battle to the death against each other. Matt, comments? Concerns? No.
Comments, concerns.
Anything you want to bring up before we get into it?
Oh yeah, I would like to. Can I do my 5-minute rant now?
Yes, you can do your 5-minute rant.
Perfect. My quick 5-minute rant is, as far as manga goes, and I'm going to try to avoid spoilers, but as far as manga goes, we have 3 fights currently to go off of, and all 3 involve a different approach and mindset to it. You got Gojo versus Jogo, which you see him just arrogantly walk up, explain what his curse technique is, hold hands, which if he does that approach, I think Gojo loses. And the second one, you got the Shibuya one. I think that just came out on anime. That one, he actually applies effort to that fight, even though he is hands down going to win it. He, without spoiler reason, just has a reason to do so. And he actually puts an effort in that fight. And I think in the same way, he kind of gives away just enough to lose that fight. I think if he gives anything away at all, he loses. And then in his last fight, Gojo versus Sukuna, which I don't think that is spoilers. I feel like that's hinted at early enough in the series for that not to be spoilers, but it is a very different approach, and he does not give anything away. So I think going off of Doctor Strange's feats, if his technique is given away, Gojo loses, in my opinion.
So, as far as the two combatants go, we want to break down each of these characters' abilities, their origins, and kind of give anyone who's a new listener or unfamiliar with either character, one or the other, a better understanding of each of the characters. Doctor Strange is a little more in the current vernacular because, of course, your MCU universe stuff. And because of that, I think we'll save that one for last. It's a little easier to go over.
Sure.
Matt, if you want to go over and give everybody a bit of information on Gojo.
Gojo, born the strongest of his era. This man, the second coming of hands, my favorite. You already know him. Okay. Gojo, he was born strong, just flat out. His clan possesses this thing called the limitless technique. He was born with that, which is kind of not that great of an ability unless specific conditions are met, which Gojo meets them. It takes a lot of curse energy in their series, which is just their power scaling sort of form of measuring it. But it takes a lot of curse energy to do a little with this ability. But on top of it, he was also born with 6 eyes, which lets him... the specifics are a little vague and a little everywhere, but it does let him see things to a degree, and it's hinted at that he can see cursed energy to a degree where he can measure the perfect output he needs to accomplish what he wants. So he essentially can just use cursed energy forever and never run out because he replenishes it faster than he uses it. That's just... he's busted in that reason. But those two things together is what makes him just born the strongest, and that's kind of it. He has the ability to control space.
All right.
Do you have any more questions on
it? Primary way he uses his abilities so people understand what his main attacking is.
Okay. He has 3 techniques for limitless that are... oh wait, no, it's 4. You have neutral, neutral limitless, which is like the force field he has around him. Essentially, the closer you get to him, the further he compresses space. He's like a black hole. Essentially, there's just an infinite amount of space between you and him at all times if he chooses there to be. And then the other, that is just his defense. His attacking abilities, he has red, which is like an exploding force. It just pushes things away. It's kind of like gravity. And then he has blue, which is black hole stuff. Typical suck it together.
Right.
And then he has purple, which is his special. I should probably cover domain expansions too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we can cover domain expansions in the part where we kind of talk about what each character brings to the table and what makes it. Because I would say domain expansion fits into that X factor.
That's fair.
That X factor category.
Yeah. His special move, aside from all that, though, would be purple, which is apparently I believe it has to do with like tachyons or something. They did find like a loophole in physics, which is an understatement. That's like pseudoscience stuff. But it is based on something in science that was proven to be false, which is pretty cool in a way.
Yeah, say faster than light particles, which would be tachyons, but of course, in real life, they don't exist.
Yeah, and that's the basis of Gojo's entire technique, I'm pretty sure, is tachyons. But yeah, his special is if you put like the red and blue together, you get purple, which is like an imaginary mass. It's essentially a black hole. It's constantly crushing things and forcing things out at the same time. And it's described in a lot of ways. Deleting stuff is incorrect, but it's like a black hole. That's special.
It's pretty close to deleting things.
Pretty close, yeah.
I would say every time we've seen it, it's like, okay, it super compresses matter down to like a black hole would do. But since we don't know where black holes go, and we know even less about where the hell anything Gojo's ability goes to, it's basically deleting.
May as well be. It's funny because now that I think about it, I don't think it's ever shown if there's like a meat cube after he deletes people, but it just kind of peters out and there's nothing left. So it's like, may as well be deleting.
I would say it's very similar to when we create real black holes on Earth. It's that they're so small that, yeah, they'll suck up anything near them, but they have so little energy that they can't function for anything. Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, imagine a short, sustain, like only momentarily sustained black hole that shoots out, crushes everything that it passes through, spaghettifies it if it hits it, and then peters out on its own.
Oh man, I love space.
I hate it.
Why?
Because it's scary.
Yeah. I mean, the person who's afraid of the ocean is also afraid of space, but it's still cool as shit. I still appreciate the ocean. I don't have to go in it.
It's like, I appreciate it, but I don't want to be in it.
Yeah, I still like pictures of the ocean and stuff. You won't catch me swimming in it. I'm not even going to go fishing there. I might go fishing at the shore, but I'll be damned if I'm caught off that shoreline.
All right. With that in mind, before we carry on to any of the other points related to Gojo, I want to talk about Doctor Strange. Stephen Strange, that brilliant neurosurgeon who breaks his hands, ends up as a student of the Ancient One, who is currently, or was, the Sorcerer Supreme. And when the Sorcerer Supreme is killed by one of his other students, Baron Mordo, Doctor Strange takes up that role and becomes the new Sorcerer Supreme. Alongside... What'd you say?
How about that wife, though?
Yeah, ain't no wife. I think in the original comics, he doesn't even have one. No wife, no real girlfriend.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, that was more a MCU thing. Comic-wise, he kind of he's just a brilliant neurosurgeon who makes some bad choices and ends up with hands broken because he gets in a car accident.
Okay.
With his with the various powers that he gains from being Sorcerer Supreme, he has matter manipulation, energy projection, energy absorption. Often these powers are represented depending on what medium you see in things like Crimson Bands of Sidorak, which can bind people in space, or the Ruby Rings of Ragador, which increase his own magical might before he casts things. But generally speaking, he can, to a degree, do whatever he needs to do for the time. But there are some common powers that we see. In addition to this, of course, you have the Cloak of Levitation, which grants him flight without any real effort on his part. Agamotto, which lets him see through illusions, gives him limited precognition, or full-on seeing into various futures if he has the time to focus on it. As well as the Eye of Agamotto allowing him to increase his own intelligence, create magical shields to protect himself, and other powers.
My guy has a blindfold that makes him a little weaker.
Yeah.
Just saying, I have a toolbox too.
Let's say a blindfold that makes you less effective. Wait a minute. Why would you want that? But generally speaking, Doctor Strange has a wide-ranging toolbox in his arsenal of being Sorcerer Supreme. Alright, so carrying on from the whole toolbox idea, I just wanted to cover some of the common feats for Doctor Strange that have been like the main talking points for a lot of people who talking about his strength. So for instance, he's faced down Dormammu, who is the ruler of the Dark Dimension, who has powers on par with people like Odin and Galactus, and while he's never beaten him in a straight-on fight, he's been able to outsmart or temporarily disable him through similar traps to what you see in the MCU, where he's trapped him in a time loop, or
yeah, he's won never physically, or he's always shown to physically lose, but he always wins mentally somehow.
Yes, like he can't physically outmatch someone like Dormammu, or even his fights with Galactus. He can banish these people and he can defend himself against their powers, but he cannot immediately match up to them. But he has the power to survive attacks from them and sustain damage from them, as well as use techniques or powers that allow him to physically remove these threats from the battlefield, which matters in this situation specifically. Following on from that, as far as if we just get into just destructive powers and how he can enhance himself, he can provide attacks that are able to damage, hurt, or harm the Incredible Hulk, completely immobilize or incapacitate people like Iron Man, and physically, if need be, he can enhance himself to the point where he can physically keep up with characters like Spider-Man in strength, as well as using the Eye of Agamotto to make him able to either mentally match up to people such as Doctor Doom, or to protect himself or see into the future in regards to fights against characters that might be faster. I think that covers most of the information on Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like that immediately moves us over into the actual fight. We can immediately talk about how do we see this playing out, and what do we see as important parts of this fight in general.
Okay. The most important part of this entire fight is what happens in like the first second. After that, I think it's over. Well, when you play the X Factor, I think there is an additional second, I guess. But I think aside from those two instances, I think Doctor Strange just wins.
Just outright thing. I would say that I agree, but I don't think that it is as straightforward as it depends on what happens in the first couple of seconds, because their mindsets are largely different.
Yeah.
Gojo will kill people. Outright kill people, no thought process about it, doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Strange is normally killing is the last resort. Even when it comes to dangerous people, he is far more often to, or far more likely to, pull his punches.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is even seen when he fights World War Hulk, where he knows how strong Hulk is, and he knows that given the chance, Hulk can flatten him. But he goes into that fight kind of cocked and gets injured for it.
That's fair. Do you think you would extend that kindness to Gojo?
Not in the same degree.
But
Absolutely
to a degree,
not.
that's fair.
Yeah, say to a degree, I feel like he would pull his punches. He's not gonna outright like throw the whole planet into the dark dimension so he can completely outmatch Gojo. Despite the various parts that could go wrong with that. Nor do I think before he's gonna start the fight, he's gonna go, "Hey, I have Agamotto. I need to see all the different futures of how this battle would pan out."
That's fair.
Because
so, real quick, just in like, let's say like the first 5 seconds, would you say? Yeah, let's go with the first 5 seconds. What percentage do you think Gojo could win in the first 5 seconds?
in the first 5 seconds.
Yes.
So say the fight just kicks off. Gojo's immediately out the gate, guns ablazing. Throws everything he can the moment it starts.
Yeah.
I give him 60-40. I don't give him a 60% chance of winning. I give him a 40% chance of winning.
That's fair.
Because
I would still go 30. Precognition's pretty busted.
It is, but it's very limited because he sees multiple different futures and not always just one. And if Gojo has different ways that he can attack, then this becomes different for each different way. The only reason why I say 60-40 is because based on Doctor Strange's personality, if at any point he chooses the less lethal or the less fight-ending option, he can still end up losing because of that.
That's fair. In all 3 fights, by the way, Gojo has led with a physical attack.
And that is
never, yeah.
In my opinion, the leading with a physical attack is actually one of the only reasons why he actually has a chance of
I also agree with that. Yeah.
Because if he starts with magic, if he starts with his sorcery, in comparison, their powers are like night and day. Gojo's powers are powerful for his universe, but when compared to someone who,
yeah, what Doctor Strange does is just busted.
I would say he'll shoot a beam of energy like his bolts of Thor, and it will hit Thor, and Thor gets knocked. I'm almost certain that if Gojo started punching Thor, nothing would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the ceiling in Jujutsu Kaisen is just much lower than it is in the MCU.
Yeah, well, and that's just how it is when it comes to comics and manga, depending on what universe you're comparing. But
yeah,
I would say in this sense, Gojo has a chance, and it's almost entirely because Doctor Strange is tough, but physicality isn't his thing. He's a sorcerer. He's a mage. he's your squishy character in any kind of MOBA. He can deal it. He can dish it out, but he really can't take it, especially not excessively.
Yeah.
And that's where Gojo gets his chance of really that's where Gojo gets his chance to really take the cake. Is I give him a 40% chance of just via physicality taking the win.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. I'll say 40-60.
But the moment the battle comes down to, like, the moment the battle goes from I'm gonna try to use my physicality to end the fight immediately, that's when this fight ends. It turns from 60-40 to 90-10.
Yeah. I would even go higher than that. I would go like 99-1.
Yeah, you're
I
almost.
feel like it's very minuscule that like Strange loses that.
Yes, which does bring us to our X factor, which is the idea of for Gojo, and this is the one that I think we discussed more, was the domain expansion. Which this is where you wanted to talk about that more, if you want to go ahead with that.
So in Jujutsu Kaisen, there is domain expansions available to very good. Well, it's not always very good. It's a little complicated, but it's available to Gojo, which is what matters here. Essentially, you can create a pocket dimension, and it has something related to like your curse technique. In Gojo's case, what is the sure hit technique is everyone who is not Gojo inside this pocket dimension is affected by something called infinite void, which what it's described as like placing the knowledge of everything and nothing on you. And it's like so much at once that you're either stunned if you're a cursed spirit or like a ghost, or you're just like outright killed if you're a human. And there is some nuance that you can like shorten the duration, so like humans won't die if you do it for short enough, but like it goes bad very, very fast, like less than a second. If I remember, it is 0.2 seconds of the domain left people incapacitated and in a coma-like state for 3 months. So it's that fast.
Let's say it's basically like getting hit with a information overload. Because I think every 0.2 seconds is 2 years of information. So every 0.1 second is a year of information.
I have no idea how you got that, but yeah.
It mentions it somewhere that the 0.2 seconds is like 2 years of information being thrust into your brain, which is information overload for the person.
Okay.
Which causes that catatonia that pops up in all these characters. And for our fight, that it becomes such an important part of the fight, because if Doctor Strange gets hit with it, is it over?
It can be. In my opinion, Strange has done so many feats that are on par with just outthinking someone that I honestly don't even think he would be affected by this. But because this is a special technique that is specific to Gojo, I want to say it would do something. So I'll say that it would work, and then I also don't want to discredit Strange, so I'll say that it'll work for a second, and it would essentially restart the entire fight. So if he's not one shot in the second restart, essentially round 2, then again, I think it just repeats and Strange wins if it's not capitalized on in that exact moment.
I would say that
I still feel like that's throwing Gojo a bone, if I'm being honest.
I think Gojo has a chance for that to matter, like even for the moment of distraction that it may cause. Because I'm not going to assume that Doctor Strange can't actively just ignore this. He could astral project and completely pull his mind out, so he's separate from his body.
Futures at once.
He can literally look into the futures and be like, "I know you're gonna do this, so here's my counter spell." Or here's my own pocket dimension that I can be within. And then we have to assume that does it penetrate someone else's barrier if they're protected from the outside world by whatever
And
protection they
actually,
have.
now that I'm thinking about it, MCU Strange is probably one of the biggest like Strange letdowns in a way in terms of like what he can do compared to
Oh,
like comic book ones. Major letdown.
100%.
So, but at the same time, I think just going off of the thing that you was talking about, I'm actually pretty sure that the future Strange MCU Strange looks at is more information than Infinite Void can even output.
Which is the problem. If you're able to
Yeah,
foresee all of the various futures simultaneously just by using your own powers, then
because
that
what
means that,
he's in the movie, he does it for what like 10 seconds, and he's looked at like 1,000,001 universes or something like
yes,
that,
he's looked at 1,000,001 possible
futures.
futures.
Yeah, like that.
I mean, even if he was only looking at these futures for 10 minutes, if you times that 10 minutes by 1,000,000, you've got years of information being gone through simultaneously. And while it takes his focus, he's still able to defend himself, protect himself in that time period, and then immediately pull away when he needs to keep fighting. Which means that even the infinite void, it won't incapacitate him enough for him to just win.
You know the worst part about all of that is like the only magical thing he does is meditate, and he's just base human. So we're talking like base human thoughts. He's not even like amplifying them or anything. He's
No.
just like, yeah, that's base human in MCU.
Yeah, and
Any
then
any person could have been doing that scene, which is wild to me.
so the moment you take the comic book version where he's using the Eye of Agamotto to augment his intelligence and do that same tactic, this goes from 10 seconds to maybe 1 moment. And of course he does something very similar in Civil War, where he looks at
Yeah.
a myriad of futures. He looks at millions upon millions of futures in a moment. And he looks at their inevitable end. Like, he looks years into each of these individual timelines, futures, and he's able to interact with them and see how things could have changed or how they got that way, while also still being in the current moment. And it's all happening in a very short span of time. And something like that gives him so much power and flexibility in this situation that it's hard to really
Ever,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can confidently say that I'm pretty confident in my ability to say this. I honestly think Infinite Void doesn't do anything. But if you want to give him like benefit of the doubt, like it should work for any time at all. I do think that he auto wins that. I feel like he would never like. I feel like after losing a fight and deciding you have to do this, you would never half-ass it.
Yeah, you're not going to half-ass it if you think that you're going to lose from not doing it.
But then he's winning by throwing him a bone. Is the thing. So I
Yeah,
think it's worth saying it, but ultimately, I just think Doctor Strange wins. His tool
yeah,
belt is too big. His tools are too large.
yeah. I feel like that's the general thought process, is that he has too many abilities that are immediately in his corner. And even if we say that, okay, Strange can't be directly exposed to Infinite Void, he has to protect himself. He can't be directly into it.
I
He's
guess we should talk about like I forgot about that. So Gojo's ability to like just never get hit by anything. We should probably actually have the conversation recorded about that. So you could throw shit at Gojo and then it just like starts floating in air until he walks away. It just will never hit him. That's the neutral power. So it's like, how does Strange combat that? Well, our guy literally goes through dimensions all the time. You think like going through space, he teleports. He doesn't care. He could literally just rip through dimensions. He does it casually in quite a few issues. I shouldn't say casually. That's incorrect.
But even
But
if
like,
we were to say that, because of course Gojo's "you can't touch me" is physics based.
yeah,
Magic rarely cares about physics, and even in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, people's domain expansions with their sure hit effect completely ignore the fact that he can't be hit. They hit anyway because that's how they work. And that just implies that the effect itself works against physical objects and energies and so on, but does not work against things that are non-physical. Which, I mean, we'd never see him be able to protect himself from anything non-physical. He still gets hit by anything from Malevolent Shrine. Spoiler. Fair.
Yeah,
That's it. It's a bit of a spoiler, but yes, Malevolent Shrine hits. And not much he can do about it other than heal himself afterwards. But,
I don't think that's a spoiler. I think if you say Gojo and Sukuna are going to fight, it's safe to assume that something's going to hit eventually.
Still, I'll give the spoiler alert so no one's salty about it. But generally speaking, magic and things that are non-physical or ignore the realities that come with physics tend to get around the powers that stop him from being hit. And even if we were to give him the benefit of the doubt that, okay, this works against energy, that doesn't work against any attack that particularly targets his mind, as Doctor Strange can enter people's minds.
Yep.
He's been able to remove Bruce Banner's mind from the Hulk's body, meaning that he can literally remove your soul from your physical body if he has to.
Oh man, it reminds me of the D&D spell Enfeeblement. It's so messed up.
There's just not a lot that can be done that stops him from being able to go, I'm going to stop. I can incapacitate you in 100 different ways, but you only have 4 or so options to hit me. And that's kind of where this, because even if we were like,
the physical one is the best one out of all of them to hit.
Yes,
wild.
You're running up and punching him is your best option when this man can flick his fingers and banish you to another dimension. That is not a good option.
Oh man.
And the worst part is that, say we were to take something like Crimson Bands of Sidorak, one of Doctor Strange's easiest abilities he throws at people like the Hulk, because it can restrain the Hulk. It's magical, they're near unbreakable, etc. What happens with the fight if that hits? Is it just over?
Pretty much, yeah.
and that's kind of like that. I know people will argue, oh, he speed blitzes him. Doctor Strange can react to people who move that fast. He can catch the Silver Surfer, and so on, keep up with these people, fight Galactus, and block various things that would hit him otherwise. He can react to bullets and so on. He's not getting speedless.
Like, sure, Gojo can blitz him. Let's go off that. Well, you're talking about precognition and teleportation. It's like Gojo can teleport too, but Gojo can't see the future. So it doesn't really matter. Like, Strange getting blitzed is pretty low.
So the chances of it happening are low. The same chance of him getting blitzed is the same chance that he has of just ending the fight before it ever starts.
Yeah. Like 3 seconds in the future, you're like, oh, there's a future where I died. You know what? I'm just gonna reality warp that person out 2 seconds later. Never happened. Never could have happened.
I mean, my first thought is, if at any point Strange understands Gojo's abilities, what stops him from using an illusion that messes with how Gojo perceives actual, like, the atoms and stuff in the air? If you neutralize Six Eyes, all the rest of the abilities fall apart because they just don't function.
Yep.
And that's kind of why
and I guess this entire video is technically subject to change, as there is some information on curse technique in general in Jujutsu Kaisen that hasn't been revealed yet that could potentially change stuff. Highly doubt it. But like I said, I think the ceiling is just set way lower in Jujutsu Kaisen. So I think the information isn't going to matter, but it's worth at least mentioning. Oh man, who is Strange fighting in this comic panel?
Which scan?
Where he out reality warps someone?
I think that's the In-Betweener. Yeah, I think that scan is of the In-Betweener and then Master Order and Lord Chaos.
Yeah.
So it's very much a. I mean, you can even see it in the scan. The whole what this cannot be. I was created to be all powerful, and he basically gets
Deleted. I don't know what else to
yeah.
call it.
I say, with my mind finally free of the realm's madness, I alone am capable of turning the power upon you, the power of your own being. And he literally takes someone who is able to warp reality and has vast cosmic power and uses it against themselves to basically,
Annihilate themselves.
yeah, say, literally
Literally
throw
just
the,
like self-cannibalize themselves out of
yes.
existence. Insane.
And say, so even the power that he has can be used to turn someone else's power against them.
Yeah. There's not much you can do. If the blitz doesn't work, you just lose. Oh man. And the only reason why it's like 30-40% is because he is base human and we do think that the blitz has a pretty decent chance. Whatever. It's just I don't think it works most of the time. But that is funny though. That was created to be all powerful. Gone.
One moment.
Yeah, I think that covers it for me.
Okay, yeah, so, I have no real further thought process here. Just wanted to click. We both unanimously agree that Doctor Strange wins. If they fight 100 fights, Doctor Strange taking 90 of these for the most part, and the 10 victories that come are really just because there is an opportunity that Gojo wins on the Blitz in some of the fights.
Yeah, I'd say 90-10, 80-20 around there.
Yeah, I'd say he wins sometimes on the Blitz, but I would say even like 10. If we were to take that and go, okay, 20, 80, 20, half of that 20 is he wins on the Blitz but dies in the process. Or is banished to some off-flung dimension in the
Oh yeah,
process.
I'd
Which
agree
is
with
why
that.
we would still sit with like the 10%. So that's kind of the end result. There is that most of the time Doctor Strange is going to take the victory, and it's not a hard fought victory. While it would probably be back and forth and cautious because of how each one would be able to understand the other's powers kind of intrinsically from just analyzing each other, and both of them are very strategic fighters. I think generally speaking, if Gojo decides to take the long route, he loses. If he goes for the blitz, he has a chance, but the blitz basically throws caution to the wind and may end with him just getting evaporated.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, the long game is better, but the long game gives him no win. And that's where the fight ends, is that Doctor Strange, generally speaking, reality warping, vast control of energy, like if it really comes down to it, Doctor Strange could nuke the planet if need be. Just blow the whole damn thing up. Send it all to Kingdom Come and take the victory.
Yeah.
So that I don't have much more to say on that. Final thoughts if you want to add anything in, and then
If it was a beauty contest, Gojo would win.
wait, what?
If it was a beauty contest, Gojo would win.
Yeah, I agree. Doctor Strange kind of looks like Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, fair.
Let's see, he looks like a salt and pepper haired Hugh Hefner.
He straight up looks like a villain.
You know, yeah, kind of.
The Dracula code. Oh
Yeah, see,
man.
he's out here looking like Dracula. I, that kind of brings a different question. I think Gojo would actually have a better fight against someone like Alucard from Hellsing. Even though I feel like
You
that's a
know,
harder fight. Only because of win condition.
yeah, I don't. How do you? Can you even kill Alucard?
That is a thought process for a different episode. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to Epic Encounters, and we'll see you next time, later this week.